live here on YouTube and on Facebook. Um, yeah, gonna get started here. I'm David Clark Carroll with the Nevada County Tech Connection. We're talking with Ben Duarte from Chico State about the upcoming Technical Career Fair, February 25th. The Nevada County Economic Resource Council participates virtually. We had a great time last fall, and we got a number of the students to sign up for our talent directory. And one has already been hired by a company right up here in Grass Valley. So we're excited to see who comes and meets with us, this upcoming one on the 25th. And we're going to talk with Ben a little bit about everything, really. Now, how did you get to where you are here? You did not follow the traditional go to college, get a degree, start teaching. You came from the private sector, correct?
Correct. I graduated in 1995, so I've been out of college for quite a bit of time. I am honest to the fact that I did not like going to college, but in that time, you had to have a degree, and a college degree, a bachelor degree, was a powerful thing to have back then. It was really good to have, and that really made a difference. And so you had to do what you had to do to get through the system. I'm one of those, let's just get it done and get it over with. So as soon as I had the passing grade, I was kind of done. Okay, I got it. I need to get to the point where I can pass. Then my stress level was gone. Up until that point, some of those classes, I'm not a heavy math person, physics or chemistry, and my major did not require all those things, but I did touch on a few of them within my career, within my degree. And so I had to learn what I had to learn, and that was kind of good enough. But I'm a business administration major. It was a production management, operations management. And the best way to explain it, you go to the grocery store, you're in line, and there's like 30 people in front of you. What's going on here? So you have to be able to, the management has to quickly be able to bring people to the cashiers to get rid of the crowd, diversify the line. So you have to have key people on hand somewhere in that building that can come up and be a cashier correctly. And so you have to manage the process to get things in and get out in a timely manner. We usually call it just in time. So we have it just in time. So we get a backlog and we get it, and then we push it through. But we're not forcing it through. We know what we're doing. We don't have to be that efficient at that moment, but then it gets busy. In the manufacturing environment, when you're building a product, Nokia cell phones, and all of a sudden Nokia is like the hottest thing in the 90s, because they want more and more product. So you have to know how to vamp up more production. But then you also have HP computers, and then you have some companies that work with NASA doing stuff for satellites. You have to integrate those into the mix. And so everybody wants to get their stuff right now. And so you have to learn how to have a different mix of things going through. So you are juggling things that you don't even know you're juggling. Because they're throwing that chainsaw that's off, they're throwing the chainsaw that's on, or they throw the chainsaw and it turns on when you grab it, because all of a sudden it's hot. You have to learn how to adapt. And then the unforeseeable, something breaks and there's nothing going out the back door. Now we're losing money. And so someone has to fix all that. And so I quickly adapted to like, hey, okay, I can do this. Get out of my way. Let me get a plan together and let's run with it. We're going to have one plan and we're going to go with it. And he goes, what if it's the wrong plan? He goes, we will know pretty quick whether it's a good plan or not, because either it's going to work real quick or we're going to need another plan. Okay, so let's work with making a plan. And so I got a reputation of like I was the fireman. I go, just let me take care of it. And basically it was, I knew what my boss wanted. I knew what my boss's boss wanted, and I knew what the owner or the investors of the company wanted. This is what they wanted to happen immediately. And so that was the goal. Whatever it was, that was their goal. So I did it in the fashion that they wanted it done. And sometimes we did some little crazy shortcuts and they worked, and sometimes they didn't work, but we were able to fix something and get going. And somebody was like, how do you know how to juggle all this stuff? And it's kind of like, well, I have an advantage that everybody else doesn't. Then I would leave. And they're like, well, what is that advantage? What's this advantage? My first job, I had to review all the procedure manuals for my immediate area, and then the area before me, 1 or 2 levels, and then in the area after me, 1 or 2 levels. So I knew the core of my process, like an atom, the nucleus, and then the thing to support it. I knew what came in to make my job easier or difficult, and I knew what left me to make their job easier or difficult. So knowing the processes, I was able to, like, if I can get this department 2 or 3 levels away from me to produce this product right now, by the time it hits 3 days later, 4 days later, it goes, I will have an easy weekend. And I'm like, and that's kind of like, I'd like to have an easy weekend with no drama. And so we figured out how to expedite certain products through our end of the shop. And the more I learned about my immediate borders, I would expand a little more, and expand a little more, and learn more about the other processes. I became an ISO 9000 specialist at our company. So I would go through and I would do audits for all the other departments. And that's how I learned the processes. So I have that key ingredient. Another advantage I had is I took computer science, which I kind of failed miserably at, did not like it. I had a visual problem looking at eyes, ones, straight pipeline. It's over the P key, I believe, or next to the P key. So there's all these little things that if you're visually impaired, they can be real troublesome when you're writing 1,000 lines of code. And so I understand how programmers work. I could not see myself sitting behind a keyboard doing that all day. But the skill set I picked up was invaluable. C++ speaks about object-oriented programming. So everything is an object. You create one object and then another object, and then you put them all together and your program works. It passes the values from one object to the other object and processes them. So it's really integrated and it's dependent upon each other. Well, the business environment is just like that too. Your object at the core is what you do at your job, and then your suppliers or your customers depend on those things on the outside edge. So you have to make sure that all of those work together, coming to you and then leaving you. It's all object-oriented programming. And we start looking at the programming model, it works with life too. You have your good friends, your close friends, your peers, your mentors, your teachers. And they all have a place in your life at one specific time, and they'll teach you something, and then maybe they go away, but they're still there somewhere. But then you have those who are always there for you, your mentors. So you're always having this, all these objects in your life, and you're juggling life. Everyone juggles life. You just kind of don't see it, but you're doing all these things all at once. And you don't realize it. And then if you can conceptualize that's what you're doing, you always have some success. Even when you're failing, you always have some success, so you can have something that's positive to fall back on. So I've always had somebody who said, hey, if you can think it, you can do it.
And now you're being that person for these Chico State students who are coming up in a pretty unusual time to be entering the job market and looking at, what are my career path options? And one of the things we hear time and again from employers in Nevada County is it's very hard for them to find qualified people to do a lot of the real technical side of things, whether it's mechatronics, whether it's operating CNC machines, whether it's doing coding. And so the Economic Resource Council has really embraced these career fairs as a good way to meet that next generation of technical employees. If they're not coming up here by themselves, just checking out the town and thinking, oh, this is a cool place to be, we're going to have to go to them. So that's really how we got connected with you here, is to talk about how to get those students up here. So when it comes to working with these students, you just painted a real picture of how you wanted to get as big a look at the process possible. You didn't want to look at just your piece of the pie. You wanted to look at, okay, where are the cherries that are going in this pie being grown? What are they being grown with? When the pie cools, what am I cutting it with? You wanted to look at everything. So how do you find working with students to get them to embrace that viewpoint goes? Do you find a lot of people are ready to roll with that, A to Z process, or are you having to break people out of more of a tunnel vision?
So everybody has an ego. I always tell people, who's that? Freud. Freud always talks about the id. What's the id? And, and you'll see TV movies and they talk about, oh, some Freudian character who's Freud, and he talks about, the id, the ego. Everyone's like, yeah, it's a cool little part of the movie. I go, but the reality is every day we deal with that. And our students are no different. Our construction management students will get a career offer, and they're averaging around. They were averaging in 60, then 65. Now they're closer to 70. And even with this pandemic, it's still up there. But they're looking at these numbers. They're getting $70,000 offer, a vehicle, a gas card, an allowance to move and live. And so they're competitive with each other. And they all want to have like, oh, I got this one, I got 67,000, I got 70,000, I got 30,000. They're going to give me a truck, or they're going to give me 8,000 a year for a vehicle allowance, And it's all Bay Area. And I go, but then you have companies up, Grass Valley, up in Modesto, up in these small towns that you're not really thinking about. And you're like, well, I don't want to go there. And maybe they'll offer you a little less, not a whole lot less, but they'll offer you maybe 5,000 less, maybe even 7,000 less. That's a reasonable number. And they're like, well, I want that big number. I want to get what they're getting in the Bay Area. And I go, that's true. I go, what if that company will give you more than you get in the Bay Area? They go, well, they already gave me an offer. And I go, do you know what that offer is really worth? I go, housing in the Bay Area, you can $2,000 to $3,000. Housing in Merced, $1,500. You just cut it in half. That's money you don't have to spend. Then you're looking at what the opportunity and growth are. Well, it's a smaller company, so you're going to be a lot more hands-on. You're going to have a real mentor because they're going to be observing and teaching you how they do their job. When you go to the Bay Area, you're going to be part of a team. I go, the growth opportunities is more difficult because it's spread out wide. So there's more people spread out wide than there is spread out close and up. And so they're not thinking about that. So when we tell them, you know what, if you want to go to Grass Valley, you want to go to Bakersfield, you want to go Modesto, Fresno, little places outside of Fresno called Sanger, half an hour out. There's nothing out there, just ag. But there's engineering manufacturing, high tech engineering manufacturing that you haven't thought about. So you have an opportunity to go somewhere where you can have a better quality of life. With the two companies we have that really showcase that better quality of life, one is NavAir, Naval Air Weapons Center. They're part of the U.S. Navy. They are in Ridgecrest, California, which is above Bakersfield, about 2-hour drive from Bakersfield. And then there's Grass Valley. There was Grass Valley, Belden, and then AJA with Bob Huddleston. And Bob has a presentation similar to what the presentation is in NavAir, where they talk about the company, potential growth opportunities, what they do. This is all the important things about the company. But from the location, you're 2 hours away from everything. In Bakersfield, you want to be in Vegas, you're 2 hours away from Vegas. If you want to be in San Diego, you're 2.5 hours from San Diego. You're close to the airport in LA, you're close to the airport in Bakersfield. If you're closer to Fresno, you can go to Vegas. Really cheap because Allegiant Air is right outside of Fresno. We have students who travel from Chico to Fresno just to get on the Allegiant Air to go to Vegas because it's super cheap. And then from Vegas, they take their hub somewhere else in the United States, which is super cheap because Vegas is a hub for everywhere. And I go, you can enjoy life. In Grass Valley, you can drive to Reno, drive to Sacramento, drive to San Francisco. You're close to the mountains for snow. You're close to the mountains for dry and warm recreation. Everything you can possibly want is there. And there's some companies there that are unbelievable. We've been tracking the company for 6 years. And we've had students try to get an internship, and it's just bad timing because there's not an opportunity, and it's the wrong time where our students have free time. It's a company that does that high-end optic camera that goes on helicopters.
Yeah, that place is cool. They're in the same building as the Tech Connection, actually.
You can't beat that technology.
Yeah. I mean, that's doing cutting edge work. And, it's not that big of a building. And what you were saying about the potential for growth in your career, it's definitely something to really keep in mind. Is there a place for me to advance, or am I going to be doing the same work my entire career? And you get up here, there isn't competition for that next position. The senior person steps down, they're either going to have to go through you, find another Chico State student, or recruit in-house. And so I think that's what you see a lot up here is people come in early and then they stay and they grow and they develop. We've had people up here, it's such a small tech community, sometimes people jump from company to company and they're stepping up. They're not stepping laterally. They're looking at places of it's a small community and you meet people, you make connections. A lot of these businesses are all in the same general area in Nevada City too. And you can be doing I believe the name is GSS that does the imaging from helicopters, and you can walk downtown from there. And that's one of the things that, if you're in the Bay Area, the house you can afford might be really far from anything. You could be working in San Francisco and, living way out in Vacaville because that's the house you could find.
You're in traffic, and depending on the city, LA, 10 miles could be a whole hour.
Yeah. And, the worst traffic jam we have up here is Highway 49 South merging at 5. It's not that bad. And we had a panel a couple months back where we were talking about remote workers, and there's been a real influx of people moving to Nevada County who have remote jobs, whether the job is based in the Bay, whether it's based in LA, it could be anywhere. And the one thing everyone said is we love not driving for hours and hours each day. And that's one of the things that you get when you do a job in a smaller community, whether it's Ridgecrest, like you were talking about. And I'm familiar with that area. It's beautiful. You're, a couple hours from Mammoth Mountain. You're on the east side of the Sierra with some of the most beautiful scenery in the world there. And you know what you're not going to be dealing with in Ridgecrest? Traffic.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Right now, we had many staff from Chico and many universities had to go somewhere, and some people had cabin access. And I just got to get hotspot. And they found out that they have poor internet in some areas. We have some people who work in going towards Grass Valley, but not there. The major stop on the 20, Penn Valley.
Yeah.
Penn Valley. And so they have an agreement with the local convenience store, the mom and pop market, to go down there, and they can sit up in the cars and they work in the cars, tapping into the internet.
Well, that's definitely one of the challenges of this area. Although Starlink is now offering signups, the county has been offering grant funding for small broadband projects to get neighborhoods hooked up. So looking kind of, if you're trying to decide where you might wind up to working on your career, this is a real growth community. We're going to see more and more connectivity pretty much every month coming online. There's a fiber optic company that's just plugging in right now, signing people up as we speak. That's groundbreaking. A couple of years back, we were doing these shows talking about broadband, and no one had fiber. Now they do.
Now you have fiber. It's amazing. My friend has fiber, and it's just pop, 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 pop. It's amazing, And we know how to. I say we, myself. We know how to install fiber. When we worked at a company in the Bay Area, we learned that some of the equipment we're selling was using fiber optic transmission, and so we had to learn how to splice for our lab. And I was like, you just hot knife, cut it, both together, and it's welded. You cut it, break it, you put it back together, and I go, that's it. It just seems like it's a Cat5 wire. I got all these wires I got to do, and that's it. And I go, wow. Elk Grove was one of the first communities in the 90s to have fiber optic. And so my friend had basically a T1 connection at his house that his company paid for. And then he allowed his neighbors to tap into that. So he set up a security system where they could tap in and he wouldn't get him in trouble. And he had his neighbors, on his Wi-Fi. And I was just kind of like, this is just unreal. He goes, why are you doing this? And he goes, because you can. And it was curious. Because he bought a nice 3-foot antenna, put it under the eave of the roof, and he broadcasted to his back neighbors. And he's the neighbor who's got the big pool, and all the kids want to go over there. So he has all the setup. And when they built the house, kind of designed every single room has 2 walls that has double Cat5, double cable, double phone line, so that we can double speaker wire. So it goes to a hub and we can connect something in the house. And it just seems like overkill, but that was great. So when my parents did their upgrade, my 7-year-old niece, she helped my brother wire the house. I just told him to do wires. My niece would grab the wires, pull arms wide, tape it, pull it, tape it, and perfect runs. And so my parents' house is completely wired. And I tell people, you can get Wi-Fi and all that, but if you have crawl space, I go do a hard wiring job, because you can connect the computer, the things you don't have to be portable, connect them to hard drive. And we just upgraded one of our routers, and I pay for 125, I'm getting 200 something download.
Jeez.
That's and that's what happens when you buy your own cable modem instead of rent one. You don't have to, they don't throttle it that easily. But we're getting pretty good. It's something you just start playing with and learning more. And I tell the students, I go, when you do your resume, this is the one time where your resume can be more than 1 page, because you can put behind it a project portfolio of the things you've done that they should be aware of. And I go, like, I could put down there that I've rewired a few homes for hardwiring the internet to all the devices in the house, so there's not an electromagnetic field with Wi-Fi. People are afraid of that. And everything is direct and connect. And I go, and how do you know how to do that? And he goes, well, at one time I had a job, they taught me how to do that, but the reality is YouTube. I don't know how to do it. I go to YouTube. Let's figure it out. Everyone's doing. I tell high school parents, if you want to interest your kid in advanced engineering, buy them a 3D printer. Let them print things. Have them challenge. Make little toys. Make little Legos. If you broke the knob on your radio outside, you broke a knob on some furniture. 3D print the knob. Because what if they don't get into it and they don't like it? And I go, you can always sell your 3D printer for what you paid for. Somebody will buy it. And I go, but that starts getting that creative mind. I go, you start thinking of what can you 3D print? I go, you can 3D print a house now. There's kids who have 3D print. There's a team of kids who 3D printed a car. You can pull it on the internet. There's all these things you can just 3D print. And if you're into hot rodding, there's a company that they started 3D printing the parts of their cars. And they built it with 3D printing. And then they're like, okay, and you're like, they can't use that for the car. It's not really that strong. Well, it's kind of strong for some areas, but then they take that 3D printing, send it to a metal foundry, and they have that part turned into something that's metal, brass, chrome, whatever. And now they put it on the vehicle. Now it's thoroughly strength. I go, these are things that you can play with at home. You can design something. I go, it's just, what did someone say? The cell phone, the computing power of a cell phone is as strong as the computing power that put the Apollo mission up into outer space.
Yeah.
And most people are just sharing cat videos. What are you going to do with your phone? I go, we're on YouTube and we're on Facebook. So when I go to high schools, I tell them, you could do something. What do you like to do? I go, my niece likes to do makeup. And she had a couple of thousand people following her on her quick makeup techniques, because she just liked to just play with it. And she was 15 years old. And she was sharing that with the family over Thanksgiving. And she told her story, and someone thought it was really cute and funny, and kind of like, why are you even bothering your time doing that? And I'm like, hey, Devin, has someone asked you, have you got an invitation from Hollywood to go to a premiere for makeup? And they're like, yeah. And they go, how was it? And he goes, I couldn't go. He goes, why not? He goes, well, I can't drive. I'm only 15. I was like, wow, next time that opportunity comes, you contact me. I'll find someone to drive you. The whole family's looking at me and looking at her and goes, what do you mean? I go, people like this who have followers and do makeup, I go, they can get like serious jobs in Hollywood. They need people who can do makeup quick and change over. The people who do those beauty pageants, they walk in, they have their makeup, they walk out, change outfit, come back in, different makeup. They got to do it quick. That's a real career. Now they call that influencers.
So let's kind of drill down a little bit. It's an interesting point you just brought up, where someone is doing something they love. They have an opportunity to move forward. People need to jump on that stuff. If you're going to be working your whole life, you want it to be something that you like. You know, you don't want to show up every day and hate what you're doing. How do you encourage students who like come to you and they're looking for a career path? How do you help them find that thing that they love, particularly in something as, you know, kind of opaque as engineering and, you know, that the whole STEM careers?
So if you're already in the College of Engineering at Chico State, any college of engineering, any university, he goes, you have an idea what you want because you had to take physics, chemistry, and calculus to get to your second, third semester or third year. You had to take all those classes. I mean, if that didn't kick your butt and kick you out, then you're going to survive. So you've passed that. Your foundation, solid foundation. But now there's focus. What do you really like to do? And I go, well, you go first try to figure out what your real passions are. What do you like to do? So we have a lot of students, and that's where they start already picking their majors. We have a lot of students in construction management, and it's a hybrid major, it's business and engineering technologies. All you have to do is be good at math. I mean, that's a selling point when I go to high school. I goes, you have to be good at everyday math. He goes, and I ask students, are you good at that? I goes, well, I don't know. And he goes, I don't like that. Me neither. He goes, but do you like money? He goes, yeah. Do you know how to manage money? You know how to maybe put it in the bank, write a check, do those little simple things? And I go, yeah, that's the beginning of being in that major. You just have to have basic skills. Anybody with a good basic math skills, and you can't be afraid. But if you're not that good, we have tutors to help you. And that's the one thing we do have. At Success Center, we have tutors. We'll help you get past that one hurdle. Because once you pass that hurdle, then the next one's pretty smooth, and then you get another hurdle. I go, but then you're starting to focus. Those who are in electrical and computer engineering, I mean, those are the ones who are going to be creating. Those are the ones who created all the cell phones we're at. Those are the ones who created, well, the talent that you get at Grass Valley and AJA. I go, that's the talent. And you go, we just had the Super Bowl, and I was telling people, I go, well, I didn't watch it. I didn't really care to be inside that weekend, but how was the halftime show? How was the game? And I go, you have a 4K television. How was that? And he goes, that thing you're looking at, and you think, man, it's the greatest thing that ever came out. That was designed like 5 years ago. That's what you're looking at. It's 5 years old. That technology, the new stuff coming out, man, that's fantastic. And he goes, how do you know? And I go, I'm just happy to be fortunate that one of the companies who recruits at my school, they're in a small county, and they're part of the World Hub. They're Grass Valley. The three major components that you need for high definition broadcast goes through Grass Valley. And people's like, Grass Valley, goes, isn't that little tiny town that it's really pretty when you go into Reno? And he goes, yeah. I go, so if you're in this industry, you could live there. You're close to the snow, and you're not close to the snow. It gets cold, but it's not really cold. It's a nice place to be. You're from everything. But that center, they create all this technology. NASCAR, Super Bowl, the Emmys, the Oscars, all that stuff you see on television. He goes, that's that. And when I'm talking to high school kids and they start like, they like that, they're like, man, they like that. And they go, how do they do that and create that? And I go, you can just go on YouTube. You can go to their website. You can see what they do. Go right now, I have a bunch of friends who had a video they were sharing, and there's this guy. He's holding a little owl, and they got the body, they're holding the body, and the eyes are staring right at the camera, and they're doing this with it, and that the body's going everywhere, but that head is just focused. And someone goes, well, it has to be focused because when they're flying, and they find their prey, their mouse or whatever they're going to eat, they have to fly around things. They got to be focused. And I goes, yeah, isn't that crazy? He goes, yeah. He goes, I go, that's what you see. It's in nature, natural. He goes, they're creating that in Grass Valley. I was telling about that company. They got this high-tech camera. It's on a helicopter that they fly in ungodly weather, and that helicopter's being thrown around. But that's a perfect image that they're taking. They don't lose track of that image, and that's high-end military. But they have some of the downgraded civilian stuff that people see all the time. If you're in LA and there's a car chase on the freeway, forget watching the news. They're just going to watch the car chase. They're not going to focus on anything else. It could have been an earthquake, a tornado, all of a sudden happened in Southern California, but that car chase takes precedence and the camera's following it. And I go, that's the fascination, the technology. And so when the students we have, and I share with them, there's companies in Grass Valley, the camera ones I tell them about, you got to look at it. You have to look at these places where there's things like, why would I work there? There's a company there that you didn't know about. There's a company outside of Fresno that they specialize in 3D printing. They came to our career fair, and they come every 2 to 3 years. There's not a high turnover. And my coworker picked up a product. He lifts it up and he's looking at it. He's playing with it. He's turning around and the guy's kind of looking at him. He's a little nervous because he's handling it. He's touching it, getting it greasy, finger oils. And he kind of tells him, yeah, puts it down. He goes, yeah. And he goes, and I go, why were you staring at him like that? And he goes, and that's a $300,000 piece of equipment that goes into an aircraft that we print in 3D. And that's actually one of the pieces that's going to go to, it's probably going to go to an F-18. They're making the landing gear lighter, but that piece is landing gear. It's not going to drop it and break it. It's going to take the full force of the aircraft landing and hitting the tarmac. And I go, so there's a 3D printing company. They're outside of Fresno. And like, well, who wants to work there? But it's high tech, and high tech is high tech. They're getting paid what high tech's worth. And they're in Fresno where it's affordable. There's so many little companies that we have throughout the area that we try to tell students, well, take a look at these companies. They're there. You just have to be open and search the companies. You don't have to go to the Bay Area. The Bay Area is busy. It's fun. It's nice. I go, but you can have a really good life out there. And what is it about the Bay Area you like? You want to go to a sports game? Yeah, you can go see the Warriors. Good luck getting tickets. Because the Warriors, they play in Utah. You know that. And he goes, yeah. And your point? He goes, if you're living like in Grass Valley, you go to Reno, to Sacramento, get a plane, you're in Utah. You watch the game, you can be home that same night. Cheaper than driving to the Bay Area through that traffic to get a ticket. It's quality of life.
Yeah. I think that's really the big thing that we have to offer up here too, is just, there's less traffic, there's the outdoors. And one of the things that there's a lot of need for up here, and I'm looking at, we're going to roll back a little bit here. We've been talking kind of broadly here, but we're talking today because of the upcoming technical career fair. And there's a wide range of majors that are going to be participating in this, correct? There's,
Yes.
everywhere from computer animation, game development, all the way down to sustainable manufacturing. And one of the biggest industry holes that we run into up here, besides that high level engineering side, is construction management, electrical engineering, concrete industry management. It's the building technologies that are so in need here. And, we're definitely hoping to see some students that are interested in that career path as well. Talk a little bit about the differences that you find between the more high-end technical side, like the helicopter cameras we were talking about, and the more on-the-ground build something that's going to last, 50, 100 years.
So what you have going in Grass Valley is that there's a housing need, and some of your old some of your old apartment style apartments, they're, I guess some might say, they're not really meant to live there all year round. They're meant for people to come in and they would visit, they would be there for the summer or long weeks, and they kind of leave. And they're comfortable and they're nice. I go, but it's not the place where you like kind of want to call home. I go, so some people are like, well, where do you go live? I go, so some of the things that we do when we're talking to students and get jobs is, where are you going to go live? I go, there's a lot of places there. And I go, well, I go, how do I find housing? And I go, wherever you're going to work, you ask them. Where's a good place? I go, if you're coming in brand new, some companies have recent new hires who did buy a home and did welcome a roommate, and you'd have somebody who would mentor you and be your roommate or landlord while you're working in the area. And I go, there's these unique opportunities. For the construction management and the concrete, for the concrete, you do have, I guess, east of you, kind of a little bit south of you and north, where you do get the months where you get a lot of snowfall and there's snow on the road and they have to clear that snow. There's new technologies in concrete management where they're starting to build the new pavement techniques that are going to be warmer and the snow will melt and it'll run off and the ice won't accumulate. I go, so there's new technologies that are playing with some of those things that they're doing that I'm kind of explaining that they could do in your area, they do in Portland because they have a lot of heavy rainfall. And the last thing is to have heavy rainfall on straight asphalt or concrete highways, it can get slippery. So they're using a different kind of aggregate to make the road where the water can go into the asphalt and drain away, and the top is still kind of sticky because it's kind of I explained it. It looks like a marshmallow crispy the whole road because that's how it's got big aggregate and it's packed in. A lot of little grooves where the water can go through and get out. They've shown where that technology works in the snow. So I tell people, well, there's opportunities up there. I go, there's companies that are building. You just got to tap into one, and then because you're learning new technology, technically you might be able to take that company to a new direction, or you might find opportunity where you can find growth and have a job up there. Because you have to look at your skill set and will it work there? Yes, it'll work there. We have students who graduated in concrete engineering management. One of them in particular in the Bay Area, he was upset because the job site was taking forever because some guy was there cutting the trees down. And he was like, you're getting paid like what, $5-6 grand to get rid of all these trees, and you're just holding up the job site here, dude. What's going on? And the guy tells him, I goes, you have to get the root, all this you have to take all these trees, trim them down before you get in because the equipment's going to damage them. There's going to be weight and they can shift and they could fall, but we trim them, they'll stay down. Hey, but $5 grand now, we're getting like 60 grand for this job. And the guy's like, you're getting what? You're getting 60 grand just to do this? And he goes, yeah, it's real important. It's specific high-end work. He's now an arborist. He does some side jobs in concrete. He's now an arborist because, wow, this is some great money. And he took his technology of how to manage a business, a technical business, and he just transferred what the product was. And so he's in there. But I see the need. You need more housing. You need some conversions of buildings there, and maybe some new buildings. And they have to be not just going up to be buildings, but they have to be part of the like an ecosystem. They have to look like they belong there. They don't want you to look out of place. And then you have to maximize the usage of where you should be building, where it's and not tearing down things to build something. Cutting out the side of a cliff or a mountain. So it's really unique. There's a lot of opportunities, and sometimes these students don't realize that. We've had companies who've hired at Chico, and the job was you drive to some helipad, helicopter picks you up, and they take you into the mountains. And they were the ones who were putting up they upgraded all the transmission lines for PG&E going east. They were there in your general and specific areas, working and installing all the lines that go for this power grid across the nation. And like, how did, they never thought about doing the job. And then when they come to recruit with their teams, they're like, never thought of doing this. I'm afraid of heights. And here we are jumping in a helicopter. And then having to, for some of the job being, they'd hang them from a helicopter while they worked floating the lines because the towers are really tall and it's just quicker. And I go, how did this interesting? In my travels, every time I fly somewhere and I see somebody with a company bag sitting next to me at the airport waiting, I just ask, hey, what do you guys do? And they're, oh, we do kind of this. We hang curtains. And I go, hang curtains? And I go, you hang curtains? And I go, like, you work for JCPenney or something? And I go, no, it's construction management. And he goes, for curtains? And he goes, well, that's the industry terminology is something different. We call it curtains. You go to the airport and you see this huge glass wall. Glass cannot support the building, but so they build the building inside, but the outside edge, they have all this glass. They call that hanging curtains. So they put glass on the outside of the building so it looks like the people are on the outside, but they're protected on the inside. I go, that's a huge industry. And they came to campus one time and recruited once and they loved it and they kept recruiting. I go, so finding jobs to come to get Chico students is not that hard just to get here. The NRC, it's been a project that we've been working with for several years. And last year, it just really blew up last year. It being virtual, it was easier to bring more of your, it was easier to bring more components of your team to come participate. You had a information session virtual, and you were able to target key students to participate, and they showed up. And everybody, a lot of the companies who did that, they were like, wow, we had good participation at our virtual information sessions, more so than we used to get in person. He goes, what was the difference? I go, the difference was that I told all the students, there's no drop-ins. You can't just drop into a session. You have to be invited. So if you get an email from a company that says, hey, John, we'd like you to be part of our information session on the 17th, he goes, you better open that email and you better show up because they just selected you.
So let's talk a little bit about how you prepare them to go to that interview, and what it takes to be fully prepared to go in, to walk in there, meet a company, and give it your best.
So each year, the students here, and most of the majors, we are asking them to attend the career fairs when they're in person. And then and they tell us, well, we don't have a resume. So I go, well, we have a career center. You can go to a resume workshop. They will talk to you and work with you on a resume. And so go attend a resume workshop, and they'll go over some of the things you do, what type of experience you had that can be valuable. And they're like, well, I've never really had any job. I go, you've never worked anything? You've never been responsible for taking care of something? And he goes, well, and someone's always going to say, well, the only thing I've ever done is babysit. Okay. Did you get paid for it? Yeah. How many kids? Well, a bunch of kids. I had a bunch of parents. He goes, yeah, a bunch of families would hire you. Okay. That's pretty good. He goes, that seems to be on your resume. He goes, really? And he goes, yeah, because here you are, young. You are taking a huge responsibility, taking care of someone's most personal and most gracious, most valuable possessions, their children. You are in their home, keeping them safe. You have to be aware that they're not going to do something that'll burn the place down. So you're protecting their property. He goes, and you're doing all this in a timely manner. And then, if they're going to sleep, or if you're doing your homework while at the same time you're multitasking. He goes, if you have to feed them during the time, then you know how to, you're a caretaker. You put all these things on there. That's a huge responsibility. I go, a company wants to hire somebody that they feel that they have confidence in. That promotes confidence. And they're like, wow. The other kids we have from SoCal, he goes, well, I look at a resume. Someone goes, hey, can you evaluate the resume? I know where they're from because I help recruit them. I'm like, okay. I go, hey, dude, your resume is incomplete here. And he goes, and the guy who handed it to me goes, see, tells the kid, I told you. And the kid asked me, what's missing? And I go, we used to pick oranges, right? Well, yeah. He goes, why isn't it on here? Because it's just picking oranges. And I go, yeah. What do you do when you work picking oranges? When did you do it? On breaks or in the summer, different tree crops. He goes, yeah. And so what did you do? I goes, well, you got to get up early in the morning, right? You have to show up to the field, the orchard. He goes, and you have to go and pick them. And you don't just yank them. There's a technique so that you take that orange, and these oranges and lemons are table oranges. These are the ones that you would see on display in a bowl at a restaurant or your house. So you got to be able to pick them so you don't tear them. You have to know how to pick the quality, what they look like, the shape, because you want first quality. So you have to go to the tree and evaluate exactly what's pickable and what's not. And then you have to pick that. The equipment you use, you have to take care of. And sometimes you use heavy machinery, trucks and tractors that haul. And when they break down, who fixes them? Because we all have to go help. So you're diagnosing, doing diagnostics on a piece of equipment that broke, and then you're helping to fix it. There's a lot of skill set in there. The kid who mows the lawns, I go taking care of valuable property, make sure the animals don't get out, adding aesthetic beauty to the property, increasing their value. You're working ungodly hours because it's hot, cold, rainy, wet, windy. And they trust you, and they give a lot of trust in doing all that. Those are skill sets everybody wants. It's just, before kids can go get a job at McDonald's, for cheap pay and learn a skill and then still be at school. I go, now some of that cheap pay has been taken by people who kind of need a second job to make ends meet. So those kids aren't getting the skill set. When I was a kid, I'd cut grass at random houses, and I had the delivered newspapers. I go, so these are the things, because if I wanted money, I had to go get the money somehow, back in the early 70s. So there's skill sets that everybody has that you just don't realize. That makes you valuable. Now we just got to get you to put that on paper. And then you have to learn how to speak about those skill sets. When a company calls and asks you, you have to know how to answer. And you can't have the resume in front of you because you might be in a car driving somewhere and you just answer your phone. And then it's a recruiter and they're asking you questions from your resume. You have to answer them. You have to know your resume. You have to believe in what you're doing. So they ask you the question, you repeat it back. I go, that's what instills the confidence. That's your skill set. You go, and the one key thing about Chico State students in engineering and pretty much all over campus is that we're hands-on and everybody learns how to be part of a team.
That's really interesting.
All your assignments are
Yeah.
team-based assignments, and then your own assignments. So you have to your part on your own to do your work, and then your part as part of the team. And so you have to work with that. I mean, we all know Chico State has a reputation. It precedes us. It precedes us. And I'll tell you, in the 90s, when I was there, the 80s and 90s, it goes, yeah, that was really true. But that fades away. They've cleaned up their act, but that reputation still precedes us. And I've had parents at college fairs who will point that out. And people ask me, well, don't you think that kind of hurts a student's, potential career by going to a school like that? And go, well, first of all, any school can do that. If your kid is someone who likes to do that, we don't want them at our campus. Pretty much no school does, but we can't tell you no. I go, but that actually does help, because the perception of Chico State, a part of that actually helps us, because we'll have really good people skills. And goes, people who recruit Chico State students do find out that most of them can communicate. And so you're not going to get, we deal with nerds. Nothing wrong with being a nerd. Everybody loves a nerd. Otherwise, we wouldn't be on this wonderful technology right now. Me and Chico and you in Grass Valley. So everybody loves their nerds. Cell phones, laptops, televisions, everybody loves them. I go, but ours know how to communicate, because the one thing that we do teach our students is that you need to learn how to communicate with people. It does you no good to be the smartest person in the room if you're belittling the people who need your help. You have to learn how to dumb it down in a respectful way to teach the people who are using your skills, whatever you're producing, so they can use it. Because if you can be that, you will move very, very far. And we've had students graduate, and instead of being competitive with the other schools, they've gone into upper middle management, because they come in with a good people handling skills. Some of them have been president, vice president, or some kind of a chair member of an organization on campus. So they learn how to use some management now and using their interpersonal skills. And they've gone into companies and have done very well. I mean, the ones I'm thinking of right now have gone to PG&E and Intel, and they would just, and Chevron. One kid was the voice of Chevron at their public events where they have like a sponsor affair, and they have him go because he knows how to talk to people. They keep other people away because they're not people friendly, but Derek was. And so he was, or Miguel was, and they had him doing people friendly skills with the community. And so he rapidly went up to the company because he learned how to speak to people. And goes, and if you don't know how to communicate with others, I go, it's going to be real hard to move forward. I mean, there's a place for people to be in a company who don't want to talk to nobody, and there's times where you wouldn't have to be in the public eye.
And I think that's one of the things about working in a smaller community like Grass Valley, and you have to get along. You're not going to be able to do 100% of the job, right? There's going to be other people involved. And I think so many times students get into that mentality of, okay, I got to prep for this test, I got to read this chapter, and it's not thinking, how can I get my roommate to read this chapter with me, process the information better? He's going to see things I don't see. I'm going to see things he doesn't see.
Yeah.
And I'm real glad to hear that, part of the process down at Chico State is making people work with each other. Because so many times you come out of the college pipeline and you can take a test like a champ. You can read that chapter and regurgitate, an assessment of it, but you can't do it with someone else. And one thing about the workplace is, unless you're a solitary tile layer working away there in the bathroom after the builders are done, you're going to be working with other people, whether you're pouring concrete, whether you're designing the software for those crazy helicopter cameras. You are going to be in a workplace. Right now, a lot of those workplaces may be virtual, but there's still Zoom meetings. You still have to interact with your coworkers, with your boss, potentially with your clients. And so knowing what another person needs from you to be successful is a huge part of the career path process.
I'm laughing because you have to deal with customers, and the whole adage is the customer's always right. The customer's not always right. I go, well, many times the customer's wrong, and many times the customer's rude, but you have to learn how to communicate with that customer to get that sale that they need. Sometimes the rudest customers and who are the most challenging are some of your best customers that bring better profit to the company, and they come back and buy from you, because they'll go elsewhere and they'll upset some people with us to go and they don't want to deal with them. And then you learn how to communicate with them and you get their needs taken care of. And they'll come back as customers. My friend had a small store and people would talk about, oh, how do you deal with that lady when she comes in here? She's just horrible. She goes, yeah. I go, but she needs what I have and she has what I need. I go, well, I goes, I know what you have, but what do you need that she has? I go, money. I go, we need it. And that's going to be like, okay, but she's not going to bend over backwards and not be proud of what she does. She deals with the person and helps them get what they need. And sometimes the customer, they're not always right, but sometimes they don't know and they're going up what someone else taught them. But if you can get to that customer and you can start dealing with them, I mean, you have a lifelong customer. In 1990, the value of a loyal customer was worth $35,000 in 1990 dollars. The value of a customer now in 2020 and going forward, it's got to be at least 70,000. The value of a customer, maybe even higher, because if you get a good loyal customer who keeps coming back to you, they're going to spend their money there. I mean, you probably like going. Everyone goes to Amazon because it's super convenient. But if you can find a competitor who gives you the same product, same price, and who has better personal skills, you're probably going to go with them. There's a reason why you have a favorite restaurant close to where you work. Because you'll go there, and every once in a while they'll have a bad day, and maybe the food's not that great, but you appreciate that. Hey, you know what? We'll try better next time, and they usually do. So you'll have that customer interaction, and that's the key thing that everybody forgets. No matter where you are in life, because you are the customer or you're providing customer service. Because the people you work with who come to you, you're providing them a service, and the people you go and get stuff from, you're their customer. Because so you're always role playing, you're always doing that role play in whatever company you're at. And so when you're part of that creative team, sometimes you are the customer yourself and you have to figure out how to get things done. The people who are doing the high definition television, I mean, a few of them have jumped from each other's companies, AJA, Telestream, and Nevada, Grass Valley, Belding, I don't know what it's called at the moment. They've jumped back and forth, and all three of them are doing very, very well successfully. The Telestream, I tell people about Grass Valley and I tell them Telestream, and they're like, what is Telestream? I go, how many kids have worked with Lego robots? And he goes, well, everybody's, that's awesome. I go, one of the key people at Telestream is the person who wrote the software to make what you're doing feasible. And they're like, one tiny little company in a tiny little town that, unless you come to Chico or Sac State, you'll discover if you're on your way to Reno or Tahoe. He goes, this is where they're from. There's a lot of talent in areas you don't know about. We have west of Chico, where they had the other fires up in Lake County. There is a company up there, very well hidden, just like Grass Valley, but over there it's really dried and open. Some really high-tech stuff that's used in civil service defense systems. And nobody even knows it's there. You go towards Wairika, and people will tell you, there's a lot of traffic going towards the shore, but I don't see anybody going to the beach. Well, the beach is really cold and rocky and rough. And I'm like, where are they going? And he goes, that's a submarine watching post. And I go, by Eureka? He goes, yeah, apparently there's a deep water there. But then the Russians actually in the submarines come close to the coast. And that's one of the places where they have a station. And I go, that's just like, seriously? In there? He goes, yes, and then if you go to Seattle, Puget Sound's right there where they build the shipyards. There's these places that you don't think about. There's a lot of stuff there. I tell students, if you want to find a place to work, if you like a place that you would like to live at, you want to try and find a job, go to their Chamber of Commerce and see who the members are and see what companies are there. You'll be listed on the Chamber of Commerce, and you'll find out, hey, there's some technology companies up there. Everybody has construction management and concrete. He goes, that's the one industry where no matter where you go, you're going to find a job. I go, but then there's the high tech. I go, it's not so obvious. You can't see the trees through the forest. And Grass Valley has been one of those. I mean, the companies you've had that have been trying to make the presence here last year was just awesome. Many students were aware. Many students went to presentation and they were just like, wow, there's a lot of things here. And it goes, yeah. I go, imagine that. We have a pandemic. and now you discover Grass Valley. It's been there the whole time. I go, but because we're all virtual, and we're virtual, and there's people complaining about this Zoom doom and Zoom, whatever virtual office. The entire globe is doing what we're doing. I go, so we're not losing. We're all advancing at the same pace.
And I mean, the Nevada County Resource Council booth, our virtual booth had more attendees than our physical one ever had. I think it's a great way to reach students too. They don't have to rush down to the big hall and deal with a crush of people. They can log on from their apartment, from their dorm, and find that new career. And what we really want is for companies up here. You're looking for a tech employee, you're looking for a manufacturing employee, construction management. There's a great opportunity coming up here February 25th. And we're running out of time a little bit here, so I'll wrap up shortly. But it's just
I want to say,
talking to you.
Yeah, I want to say thank you for highlighting the students, not just in print, but in your virtual media. Those students, once they saw they were doing that, they share with their friends, and then their friends, and then they got to some teachers, professors, and I shared it with the professor, with the chairs, and they're like, "This is pretty neat." And I go, "Yeah, isn't that great?" And I go, "Yeah." Then I told them, "Isn't this what we should be doing too?" I go, "Look at the attention. Look at how you're looking at this kid who had a profile. I mean, how many? There was one of the students he had skill set programming in Python."
Mm-hmm.
I go, "That's like the new thing now. Everyone's Python." I go, "But prior to this, like, how are you going to discover a candidate who has Python?" Well, now that you highlight a student, they're like, "He's got Python." Well, how many people are like, "Okay, we need to keep an eye on this. Send them out some information. Find out more." Like, wait a minute, if Chico has this one kid with Python, how many other Python kids are there?
Exactly.
So that starts opening it up. And I was telling, I told you, and I think I told Stephanie Ortiz, I apologize if we what do you call it, plagiarize your idea, but I goes, "Man, this is something we should be doing." And I couldn't convince them, but now you guys are doing it. It's just so obvious. People are going like, "That's a good thing to do." And I go, "Yeah, I think I've been telling you guys for about 10 years, but okay."
It all goes back to the Tech Connections founder, Shivati, had this vision of a talent directory. And we've got a business directory as well, where it's a way to just bring everything together into one place. And it's a small community, so everyone can see who's hiring, who's potentially looking for work. I know for a fact at least one student from the fall one is already working for Autometrics up here. So there's demand, there's hunger. We look forward to getting a whole bunch more students signed up in our talent directory and getting them out into that career pipeline path. Really what the Tech Connection and the Economic Resource Council are doing, the companies aren't going to be at this Zoom booth on the 25th. We are. We're going to basically be doing the headhunting for the businesses up here. So this last little bit aimed at any tech company up here in Nevada County. If you're looking for new employees, if you're having a hard time finding a qualified, skilled person in that real niche skill set, Ben might have the person for you. Chico State might be the solution. And this is going to be, I'm going to put the link down at the bottom of this to the info on the career fair. But the gist of it is we want to help connect these students with these opportunities. And that's pretty much the upshot of today. Talked a lot about what it takes to be ready. I really enjoyed kind of narrowing in on, you have to be able to talk about your resume wherever you are, right? It's not a piece of paper you hand in and forget about. This is your story for your employer. And yeah, this has been a really, really fascinating conversation, Ben. Do you have any closing thoughts here before we get on with our evenings?
So everybody who's part of your organization, the NERC, because you had that to them. I think last semester there was over 300 resumes that you were able. Hopefully, you all downloaded them, and the same with this time, you were able to download all the resumes. And then once you get the resumes, then I tell everybody download all of them, because you never know when you want to pick through some of the different talents, or maybe if you're just bored and you want to just see a bunch of resumes in all PDF format, you'll find students that have unique skill sets, because that doesn't always just pop up in their major. Because you go through there, you're going to find a unique skill set. So everybody will have access, your group has access to those resumes once you have them in your possession. The best way to explain to the new companies I'm trying to get to sign up for the career fair is that I'm your headhunter. Because you have an opening, I go, you've told me about an opening you have that you need talent that has electrical engineering or mechanical or construction. He goes, I'm going to get you 30 to 100 resumes of candidates that have all that, and then you can sort through there and pick the best ones. And there's going to be some students that everyone's going to want. You could try to be the highest bidder, or you can try to find out who else has the same skill set. But then as you look at students and those who have a projects attached to their resume, you can see, what they've done on their own and what skill sets they truly do have. Because some of them have unique projects. I mean, we have parents who kind of live in your area who are, I guess we would say they are super dad, because in their backyard, they have a, what do you call those, a zip line that they install for their kids. Their kids are like less than 10 years old, 5 to 10, and they put in a zip line. And I'm like, who does this? And I go, it was just an idea. They started with a cheap one, and then they made something really good, unique, and safe for the children. And other little toy stuff, for the children. And I'm like, man, and that's just side parts. And I go, and the one specific dad, he got the job. I mean, someone found out that he had that skill set, and they hired him. And he's because of the campfires we had in Paradise, he's all the way in, I think, Boise, Idaho now. And he goes, so it was just one of the unique things he put in his resume, just to throw in there to be like, yeah, I've done something like this, that like was the eye opener and helped him get the job. Those little things that you don't talk about. If for the students, we tell them you need to. This is your one time where you get to tell someone what you're good at. And if you put it in your resume, and your resume goes to the potential employer before you get there, they will see it, evaluate it, and by the time you get there, they kind of have an idea who you are, and then they're going to have better questions for you. And so that's like the real benefit we're doing with this career fair. It's really hard for companies to take a grasp of, because they sign up with something called Handshake, and automatically they get a 10-minute slot with an individual or a 30-minute slot with a bunch of individuals. And so there's a format that works for Handshake, but it doesn't work for you to find talent. And you want to find the talent, but then you also want to find that talent that has more potential than just the basic major. And the Valley has a lot more. I mean, Grass Valley has a lot to offer. The students just have to take time and look for it. It's there. And then realize, I don't have to go to the Bay Area. I'm not going to miss the Bay Area.
I mean, we've been seeing just an influx of people from the Bay Area. So students can really just save the time of an expense of moving to the Bay, leaving the Bay, and winding up here anyway. So
yeah, that's
well,
not bad.
I think we're about out of time here tonight. Want to thank Ben Duarte from Chico State. We've been talking about the upcoming technical career fair on February 25th. Just blown away by the sheer number of resumes we'll be having in hand for Nevada County businesses to peruse, examine, and hopefully find some fascinating new talent. So thanks so much for joining us. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.